looks like we are live. So hello and welcome everyone to our webinar series presented by Florida Women's Law Group. I'm Jadelyn Fleischer, legal intern here at Florida Women's Law Group. This webinar series is designed to be a resource for all women with any type of family law issue. Today we'll be discussing a topic that has prompted many questions over the last few weeks because so many of you are curious about what is going to happen with your stimulus check. Before we dive in, I'd like to give you some information about our host and guest expert. Our host is Heather Quick, founder and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group, which is a family law firm that advocates for women in North Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on their rights and the law so they can find their strength to endure the process and end up better financially and emotionally. Heather Quick has been a licensed Florida attorney for the past 20 years, with the majority of her practice over the years being in family law. Our guest expert today is Josh Shilts, the president at Shilts CPA. He is focused on assisting attorneys, individuals, and businesses with complex financial matters and disputes. He has held roles with international consulting and public accounting firms in Miami and New York City, as well as positions with large public organizations. Josh is a frequent lecturer on a variety of forensic accounting matters. He has been involved with hundreds of forensic investigations dealing with a variety of matters involving personal and business disputes, as well as the identification and mitigation of fraudulent activities. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick and Josh Shilts to the first part of our webinar series.
Thank you, Jadelyn, and welcome everyone today. We are really happy to have you, and if you have logged in and are watching, I'm sure this topic is of interest to you, as it is to pretty much everyone that I've talked to, in addition to so much more of the economic stimulus thing, events going on and programs that are being provided to individuals. And when I spoke with Josh, who is my go-to financial person in anything related, just really anything, he's my first call, first person to ask questions to, and it came up, well, between the two of us, and he actually, I think, brought it to one of my attorney's attention, that if you read or look at the economic impact payments, the stimulus checks, right, Josh, we call them stimulus checks.
Correct.
They're going to base that. It depends. So right now, of course, is tax day, or used to be tax day. So for those of us who might have to pay, that they're going to base that on, and Josh, why don't you tell everybody what,
Sure.
As far as what the government is basing this stimulus check on for pretty much all, I guess, all tax filing Americans, or I don't want to get too complicated. But.
Yeah. So the part of the CARES Act, one aspect of the CARES Act is the stimulus checks. And the way those checks work out is basically $1,200 per individual. That phases out based upon your income. So if you're $75,000 and below, or $112,000 as head of household, or $150,000 as married filing jointly, you're going to get $12,000, or in the case of a married couple, $1,200. And in the case of a married couple, yeah,
They get $12,000.
in case of a married couple, $2,400. It phases out. So for an individual, that phases out by $99,999. For a married couple, roughly at $200,000. I think it's $5 for each $100 of income. And there's been a lot of talk about how are the checks being distributed, when are they going to be distributed, and I don't think there's a real answer on that, because whether we're talking about businesses, and I've spoken to business groups about personal payroll protection program loans and the stimulus there on when they're going to get that. Today was supposed to be the day that a lot of people got a direct deposit. I haven't talked to anyone that's gotten that direct deposit. Mm-hmm. So I think it's coming, right? What I told everyone a week or two ago when they were getting the loans in, I know they say 10 to 12 days, plan for 30 days. And I think that's, from a planning perspective, if you need the funds, whether business or individual, you need to understand that it's probably going to be 30 days, and that'll keep you safe from overspending or allocating funds to something that is not a true necessity, right? So
Now,
those are
so
gonna
if you
come out.
haven't filed for 18, if you have not filed your taxes yet for 2019, last tax return on file was for the tax year of 2018. That they're going to be looking at that, right?
Correct.
That's the
Correct. So
only
that
thing
brings up a
that's-
lot of issues,
I
right?
know.
What if I made 250,000 in 2018, but now my income is down? How is that? So the IRS has a few things that they've put out. If you're a non-filer, somebody who has never had to file before because of you're just on Social Security or something along, you can go to irs.gov and they have a non-filer payment system. The IRS is also in the midst of working out another system for individuals, and I'm going to bring up some examples because I think they hit home to divorcees. Let's look at this situation. You were married, filing jointly in 2018. You're expecting a stimulus check. You got divorced in 2019. You haven't filed anything for 2019. Well, the IRS is going to base those stimulus checks off of 2018.
Mhm.
And whatever bank account number that received the refund for that year that was used, that's where they're going to send it to. They're starting to realize that this subset of issues is going to come up. So they've created this other system. It's not up and running as of yesterday, but this other system will allow you to go in, because 2018, when I filed, I had a different bank account, or my income has changed, right? How
Right.
does that all work into it? Excuse me. And you'll be able to update your information. But I think at the heart of the conversation today is, if you were married in 2018, divorced in 2019, and unfortunately it was contentious, and your spouse has that bank account from the settlement agreement, how do you get your money? And the IRS is not going to police this, right? There's no one to police it. My suggestion is you need to reach out to your family law attorney. You need to alert them to this if they haven't already alerted you. And you need to ask them to reach out to counsel or your former spouse and get this situation worked out.
Right, because it's going to be really hard. And, one of these things that I've seen, Josh, and if it happens, it's probably not going to happen this year, but the cases where there's a disagreement, who claims the child and is really the first one to file does, which is wrong. And then eventually the IRS will catch up, and then they'll tag and take it back. But I think there's so much going on. And one, the idea of these payments are to provide immediate relief. So that won't happen. And then two, if they do catch up, well, it's not going to help you as much. I mean, relying on that, I don't think is a good idea at all.
No, and you bring up a good point. If you have children dependent or dependents, part of the stimulus is going to be a $500 check for them. So in a situation, if you're a married couple with 3 children, all of that money, $2,400 plus $1,500, so roughly $4,000 would go to that former spouse. Well, what if you're the spouse that has all the children living with you? It was contentious. You're really due $2,800 or $2,700. How do you get that? So I think that's I'm kind of reading the tea leaves and some issues that I think are going to come out on the personal side. That's one of them. Another issue, I had an attorney reach out to me from Orlando talking about child support. What if you're divorced, you have an individual who is back on their child support? The good news is the IRS and then the states, they do track that. So if an individual has not paid, is not up to date on their child support, the proper filings are in place, etc., they're not going to get their stimulus check. Okay.
Right. You'll get hopefully, if it's working correctly, the way it has worked in the past, you will get that check from Florida, the depository, but you have to be already receiving, and they have to be aware of all that. Like you said, all the legal things in place.
Yeah. So there's some processes that go along with that. I think that's another issue that's going to come up. Nothing on alimony. The only thing I've actually heard about alimony is the South Carolina Supreme Court is voted earlier this week that if someone has back due on alimony, they're not going to be able to get a stimulus of any sort too. I don't know all the details about it. And again, that's just one state. But those are things that we're starting to talk about more in the divorce world, in the family law world, excuse me, about what are some potential issues that comes out of this. The biggest thing is you have, let's step back. The stimulus program is to get, to your point, Heather, direct benefits to people that have needs, okay?
Right.
So we talked about those two situations with child support, with a different routing and bank number in your 2018 return versus what your living situation is now. The other point that I see as an issue, because I've already started to hear it, is you have a couple that's going through a divorce right now. One of the spouses is a business owner claiming that his or her business is failing, and they can't meet their temporary support obligations, right?
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen so soon, and they're just gonna stop paying because they're thinking they'll get away with it. I think, frankly.
Yeah. So I'm gonna call. The first thing because I had a client reach out to me last week, kind of bringing this issue to my attention, and I immediately contacted the attorney I was working on, and I go, listen, we need to understand if XX has filed for the payroll protection program, if they're going to be getting payroll relief, and if they are, when they get those funds, because yes, it caps the payroll at $100,000, right? But if you have an individual that has temporary support obligations and they're now saying, look, I can't pay it all, you're going to have to say, no. I know you're getting the payroll protection program, and every business is different, right? Part of that payroll protection program, and I want to make this known, and I've talked about it ad nauseum and others, is this is, not just for flailing businesses. This is for businesses that are capitalized correctly so that they remain capitalized correctly when they come out of it. So
right, so that they keep their employees. They're not losing employees. I think you're right. There's a lot of there are a lot of reasons it's in place, and there are a lot of folks who are eligible. And one error or one misconception I do think is for somebody who is going to obviously be in contempt and stop paying, maybe seeing it as an opportunity to do so. But the reality is the courts are open. Now, every county is a little different. Every circuit is going to address different issues, but they are open and there is relief there. But just like with every other, all the other government agencies, there's a lot of people seeking relief, and it's a triage, and they have to go by the level of severity. And of course, financial is, but it's never quite is high on the list as other things with the court system. So
no, the biggest ones that I'm hearing about are parenting plans right now. And I think you've already talked about that, Heather, and how do you share when you're supposed to be practicing social distancing? And I actually caught yours because I thought it was very interesting. I have a case right now, and it's not within the scope of my responsibilities, but it talked, one of the parents was in the Northeast and then flew back.
Wow.
Well, that's scary. But the financial side of it, this stimulus program is here to prop up the American economy. Are there certain businesses and certain individuals that are going to be more impacted negatively than others? Yes, absolutely. But to make a general consensus that I can't meet my support obligations, I can't do X, Y, or Z. Or another thing too is that your business has no value to it. And I think that's something that's a completely separate talk, but to sit here and say, I can't meet my payroll obligation, I can't meet my temporary support obligations, why didn't you do the right thing and get the payroll protection loans? Why, like, you just can't have, so my point is, right, step back. When someone's making a general claim about that, get the documentation to support that claim. And if they don't have that, then we know that we can call bogus on that. I think that there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of the emotional stress and the emotions of the times that we're going through and starting to make very general interpretations and decisions based upon that. And that's the wrong thing to do. The fact of the matter is that this pandemic is really, when we think about it, a sliver in time, okay, that we started, and we're, you know, I'm hopeful in another 4 weeks we start getting back into it. So over a 2-month period, we're seeing disruption. My point is that if someone now, and you know this better than me, if someone's not going to pay their temporary support for that 2-month period, right, when they have all these stimulus programs available to them, or they're not going to hand over that stimulus check knowing that they got that, you're talking about what's the impact of it? Maybe a few $1,000s. It's just not worthwhile. So, but the unfortunate thing is we know that there's contentious spouses in these situations. And that's why if you're somebody who, you know, is concerned about your stimulus check, concerned about your temporary support, I've spoken not just with Heather and her team, but I've been on the family law section of the Florida Bar talking about these situations. I would reach out to your attorney and be proactive. What I'm finding through this whole thing is everyone is who's been proactive is informed and right at the head of the line. And I am certain that Heather and her team are more than happy to take your call in these and say, okay, let's get ahead of the problem. We don't even know if there's a problem. Right, Heather?
But right, and then we're gonna, and part of that is, you're right, because I do believe, you know, with all this going on, and then just in my experience of dealing with divorced individuals and you know, how they sometimes feel about one another, especially in a time of stress, and that let them know, okay, I know these are coming, I know it's wrong, I want, you know, I'm letting you know up front. I know that you may get this. I've done what I can through the website, which I will post. You know, we will send a follow-up to anybody who registered for this webinar, or post the site, because right now what I found in, you know, Josh, you can let me know, but one, let your attorney know to like be proactive and give them the information on, you know, these checks are coming and it very likely may be wrong. They owe you the money. Going to be cheaper than both of you hiring attorneys and going down that route. It may be necessary, as it is always, you know, the case in many contentious cases, but then also on, and I don't know, Josh, because I think it's too new. I'm not sure if you've had this happen to anybody, but so you go on the website, and what I did is I went on there, and it scrolls for a while, and it says, one, get my payment, and you put in your social security number and your current address, because it looks like there are several options. One, if you know specifically you moved since the last tax return you filed and or changed banks, I think there's a specific area for that. And then secondly, if you go in with your social and your current information, what do you think is going to happen? Is that going to, I don't know if we know yet, right? I mean, if you go in there, at least update your information. I think that's one of the best things you can do. I'm not sure in their frequently asked questions, they have that. You're divorced now, you were married then.
Yeah, no, I don't think they've dealt with it, to be completely honest with you. You know, you got to remember that there's so much happening so quickly at the federal and the state levels, but you're right. There's us professionals who are the intermediaries between the information we're getting and working with our clients. And I think you're right, Heather. The best thing to do is get ahead of this before it's a problem, before it becomes anything that's going to cause any unnecessary undue stress. just want to reach out and make sure that we're all on the same page, that even if you get this money, you're going to write a check to me, because we know that the settlement agreement states that we're divorced and all that. The IRS,
Yeah, it's the smart, reasonable thing to do, which is what the court system is encouraging, of course, everyone to do, and attorneys to say, hey, help clients come up with a more creative situation, a solution that gets them through this time when, we all know it takes a while to litigate anyway. All of that stuff takes time. But where we are now, and everyone operating virtually, which is still operating. I had a hearing this morning. I'll have another one this afternoon. But, if we could have a creative solution to any of this, I think it's really important. And sometimes, and Josh knows this as well, because he's done so much divorce litigation on the financials. If you're the person looking in, and you're not in it, sometimes we can see a solution for you. And same with Josh, maybe if we're talking about a business issue, an alimony issue, these checks coming in, and you and your spouse are just like, can't figure it out, or your ex, by just bringing in that objective person, we may have a bunch of ideas for you, because one, we've talked to a lot of people going through similar issues, and we're also able to step outside and be like, well, what if you agree to do this during this period of time to get you through? Because I think there's going to be even more issues related to support, issues for those individuals who, some people are really, really busy in certain fields, as we know, and they're going to, they will, eventually, and a lot of that's going to impact them in a positive way financially. But then so many people are impacted negatively. And that might be the time. You're absolutely entitled to your alimony award, but that might be the time to, let's get creative, and let's know that things will turn around. It just may take some time. So maybe we can negotiate an agreement that you still get paid, but that's not forgiven, and that's going to be paid later. And there's so many things that I think that we can help.
And businesses are doing that with their landlords, with
right.
utility companies. I think you're 100% correct that we all need to realize that we're under this is the first time this kind of stress has happened to us. So to your point, and I think it's a really good one, is how can we collaboratively work through this and get together and get through it together? I think that's, yeah.
And I think that even, in our case, like in all of the cases, it's just an opportunity, and it can't always happen. I know that, but I do know that if we really, we all want to get everybody through this. And if you're already in, many individuals have been in litigation. And then now we have, this COVID-19, we have all this government ordering shutdowns, everybody dealing with so many issues, that just brings up the level of stress and anxiety. And then it's really even harder to see how there could be a solution. And I do think there are potentially a lot of temporary solutions, so that maybe the person who's like, well, I know they can afford this, or, what they're due to be paid. But it's like, but if we can do a temporary compromise where you're going to get that later, we'll figure out that. It can allow people to have a little bit less stress and anxiety during this.
I agree. I agree.
And with the money, we're supposed to be coming in, and all the stimulus, I think we have to, remain hopeful that the current president wants to stay president. So hopefully he's going to do all he can to pour money back into the economy.
Yeah. One other situation, as you were talking, I was thinking about too, is you have individuals that get divorced in 18 and 19, one spouse is only receiving alimony. As we know, alimony is not taxable. Okay. Let's say that they did file their 2000, they're a non-filer, right? They could theoretically get that stimulus check, even if because they have no taxable income. So I bring that out from a planning perspective, is right. if you have no income, you're getting alimony. We know it's not taxable, right?
Right.
Are you able to get that 1,200, right? And you may or may not need it. There's some really nice things that you can do if you do have the funds. I've been talking to a lot of my clients is charities and not-for-profits, 501c3s. They brought back the charitable contribution credit, which is almost like a dollar for dollar credit, up to $300. It's not a lot, but you know, those organizations are hurting, so they're trying to give some relief there.
Right.
So I bring that up because I do think that there are some flaws and cracks in the system, and I don't blame anyone for that. I think the amount of time to get this out and to do it right, of course, there's going to be some people that are going to say, oh, well, you forgot about that. And it wasn't intentional. Everyone's got, everyone from every government I've listened to or people I've talked to have their true intentions and their heart is out there. Some people are going to be the crooks of it, but you know, if you get a stimulus check and you're still receiving, I don't know, you know, 150,000 in alimony a year, right? But technically you filed and you have zero income. What do you do with that? Donate it, right? Give it to people who are in need of it. But then there's also the situation there where, you know, maybe you do need it. So it'll be there for you. Or, you know, maybe you didn't get the alimony deal that you wanted, that you needed, and things have changed. And when you were married in 18, you were above the threshold. So now you need it. That's where that IRS website will be for those individuals to talk about the changes in their bank, in their financial situation, in their marital situation. But I think that's going to take some time because here we are and we're still waiting on those stimulus checks to hit, right? And then just so everyone knows is the ones today are the direct deposits. If they can't direct deposit, there's going to be that's where they want to have that period where they can do the paper mailings.
Right, and then they're going to mail you a letter if they sent you a check. But for they direct deposit, you get a letter, but you didn't get the money.
But I have a hunch that they're not going to do the mailings, and I'll tell you all why. I got a notice yesterday that the IRS is not going to receive mail-in returns through the July 15th period.
Because of the virus, right?
Potentially. They just don't want paper returns right now. They only want electronic returns.
That brings up a whole nother,
right? So the one thing I know about this is it's a constant change.
I know. And you know, frankly, to that point, like we are giving you the information we have now based on everything. But just like with, you know, the current, with everything, go to the source, go to the irs.gov site, just like go to the CDC site for how it's go to the source if you have more questions than we can answer, because it's evolving every day, because eventually they're going to update that when they recognize the issue. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it, but they're going to, you know, at least address it. One of the things I do, okay, so here's the scenario, Josh, and you can get your crystal ball out and tell me what you think. Okay, so divorced couple, alternate years on the kids. So, and just we'll do one child because then it's pretty much so. In 19, I claimed my child. In 18, my ex claimed my child. You know, we alternate. Are we, who's going to get it? Am I going to get the extra payment for the child? Because I filed in 19 with the child, and let's say my former spouse
didn't file
without a dependent.
But did the former spouse file their 19 return?
Okay, so let's say if they did, probably only one of us is getting the check.
Correct. Because they have two on record that filed, it'll go to that. The situation where I think it gets hairy is 18.
He hasn't filed yet for 19.
Yeah.
Last record shows claiming Junior as a dependent, and my last on file has me claiming Junior. Are we each going to get it? Do we know?
No, I hope the IRS plays on the cautious return and doesn't send it out to both parties, because they're not going to have I think it's going to cost them more than what the check is to get the money back, right? So Unfortunately, I think in that situation, that mistake will happen, and it's going to be
Right.
on the people who is honest to return it. But how it
And then
is fixed,
who gets it?
no, it does get fixed because it gets fixed as a refundable tax credit in the 2020 year. So
Okay.
it will revert back. So there's going to be people that are going to get this money that are going to, because they haven't filed 19, and they would have been phased out for it. So when we file for in the 20, it'll all come back out. It'll be a timing difference from an accounting perspective. But eventually it'll get itself flushed out.
Yeah, and I think those are the issues, and that's where easier said than done. Talk to your former spouse, talk it through, try to share it, try to do something that helps both of you. One of you may be impacted more financially than the other person, because that one, there's nothing in anyone's divorce decree that talks about a stimulus check as it relates to the child. So that's a creative solution that, we would advise you, let's try to work it out, because like you said, Josh, it's $500 per child. So you got to hope that we're all letting this, bring us.
You can run up an attorney fee quicker than that $500. Absolutely.
I know. So
an expert accountant. So I agree. I mean, I think, we just wanted to bring out some points today that I think are going to be big ones. The bigger issues are going to be related to spouses or individuals that own businesses.
I agree. And we are, we're going to follow up on that. Certainly, if not this week, definitely next week, because I want to address, some of the issues so that we can put that out there and you guys can reach out, post questions. But small business owner, and both Josh and I own our own businesses. We're both married, thankfully, but in the event we weren't, or, the many clients that both of us represent that have businesses that are affected. Everybody's affected. It's just to what degree. And then, we're going to look at, okay, well, if they get the stimulus from the government, that should ideally allow everybody to remain paid for the next couple months. How does that affect you? Is it a business that maybe now is going to, we could look at rebounding, but if they're wanting a divorce and they knew they were going to really have to struggle with a business valuation, we can talk about that, because
there's definitely going to be some divorce planning that's been going on, because in the valuation world that I live in, you're seeing a lot of estate and trust attorneys and estate and trust professionals saying this is an opportune time to transfer assets because you're dealing with distressed assets. There's a difference in my world that we call distressed and impaired. Distressed is temporary, impaired is permanent. And I'll leave everyone with that. I think all businesses are distressed to varying degrees right now. Some of them will be permanently impaired, but not all of them. And the distress that we're all seeing is going to be mitigated to a certain extent by the stimulus programs that are out there. So we need to be careful. I think there's going to be I think this V curve, this deep dive is going to have an impact on valuations. I sit on the AICPA's Business Valuation Committee. I'm now chairing their task force on valuations and how we're handling with these things.
Right.
It's a major concern for all the different organizations to ensure that we have integrity in the valuations. But I can tell you this, the fact that not just the AICPA, but other groups, NACPA, ASA, are all involved on this is someone's going to game the system. And I could see the divorce situation where someone's saying, well, I'm going to file right now in my business. Look, I have no cash, no AR, it's net asset value. Look at my earnings, they've fallen off, blah, 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 blah. They're going to try and fast track that divorce in through this year, hoping that somebody like myself will make a mistake and see it as just an impaired business. But you got to be smarter than that, and you got to realize that some businesses are going through a rough time. They're going to rebound. Some businesses are not going to rebound, okay? There's
I know,
also going
yeah.
to be other businesses that we never thought about or knew about that are going to come out from this and be better than we ever thought before. So there's
Yeah.
variations, and as I've always said, every business is different because of management, because of their assets, tangible and intangible. So it's a very interesting subject, and it's a very complicated subject. But I'm already
And because of that, because of that, again, you know, if you are, you know, woman, because we represent women, if you are a woman and your husband's telling you that and the business down, let's just get divorced, I'm going to give you this because that's all we got. Just be smart and be willing to question that, because if it sounds too good to be true, or he's trying to pull something on you, he very well may be. And, you know, appealing to your sense of fear as far as what's going on. So, you know, just like Josh said, there will be people gaming the system, trying to take advantage within this realm of divorce world. We have seen it all. Not everything, because then somebody else surprise us and come up with something else. But
I think that, yeah, and you know, here's a perfect example of what you brought up, Heather, is husband is a contractor or a builder. No one's building right now. I kind of would argue that a lot of people, we're already seeing an influx of baby boomers from the Northeast. People that are leaving the bigger, I think people are going to be leaving those bigger, more populated cities for places like North Florida, where we're a little bit more spread out. So for every argument on one side that you're hearing from somebody, I'm sure the professionals can have a reasonable counter to that makes sense. So to Heather's point, don't take it at face value. And it goes back to what I was saying is everyone's being really emotional and really fast thinking to get an answer during this time. And the people I respect are stepping back and saying, let's slow down and see what happens.
right. And that can be hard. And that's why, you know, you reach out to your CPA, your financial person that you trust, like Josh, your attorney, you know, somebody that can have some objectivity and help you gain perspective, calm it down, and guide you in the right way. These are, a lot of it's uncharted, but the one thing that we do know is that humans are extremely resilient. And throughout history, there have just been traumatic events, major events that have shook the country, the world. They've always rebounded. And it's just, you know, you just got to be creative and, you know, remain hopeful for sure. Get the information as best you can from a reliable source. And that's what we're trying to do. Give you some information, not to scare you. This isn't about scaring you. This is to help you think through issues logically, intelligently, and know where to go to get good answers, because that's what we're dealing with. Life is going on. There's still going to be businesses booming, divorces happening, businesses dissolving, litigation. There's still all that stuff going on. We're just asking you to go to a reliable, trusted advisor to give you good advice. Go to the source so that you can make the best decisions possible at this time. And, you know, we're both here for you. We're going to post the site on the IRS and forward anybody that information so they can begin to make sure their information is correct. And certainly post the information for Shilts CPA if there's anything there that you want to ask Josh and get more information on. So JD, if you can wrap us up, and any questions that we didn't answer today, you are welcome to send something on my Facebook page, Shilts CPA page, any of our websites, contact us. If we don't have somebody directly follow up with you, we most likely will, but then we will certainly address it, because if you have the question, I know so many other people do. And that's right now is just to help everyone get as much good, reliable information as possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh, so much for being here. You
Thank
are
you.
always a wonderful person to have, a wealth of information, and look forward to the next webinar where we really are going to dive into a little bit more on the businesses, the stimulus issues divorcing individuals may be experiencing.
Yeah. So thank you everyone who's able to listen in for the first portion of this webinar series. As always, if there is a topic you'd like to be addressed or a question you'd like answered, please call, email, or send us a Facebook message, and it could be addressed in an upcoming video. We hope you found the information helpful today. If you think of any additional questions over the next few days, please call our office or send us a message. We're available by phone at 904-241-0012. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.